Welcome back, Nerdboxers. It's time to begin wrapping up Stu's Clues, with part 5 of this series, with only one remaining. In our last episode, we added to our ground rules. That will continue to play out here. If this is your first time here, I suggest you start at part 1 so you can catch up. In this class, those that fall behind get sliced and diced. Now, before we start, be sure to stab the like button. And then you need to subscribe, or the only game you will be playing is Who's Going to Die Next. And don't worry about Dave or Jen. I'm making sure they're fed at least twice a day. When Ghostface calls Tara in the guise of being a friend of her mother's group, they start chatting. Ghostface reveals that her mom not only talks about her, but also their mutual love for horror movies. Let's take a stab at unraveling this. With Sam being estranged from her mother, why would she be telling Richie about her likes and dislikes? She wouldn't, so this is not Richie on the phone. The person on the phone could have knowledge of this because when they were younger, they hung out in the same crowd, and let's face it, if she had a thing for Billy, it's likely Stu was around, and that they all shared the same interests. We find out later that Richie was with Sam at this time, during the call, and while he could have easily snuck off to make the call, one would have to think that an extended bathroom break would have prompted a "Hey honey, are you okay in there?" And eventually this would have looked suspicious if Sam were to think back to it. Especially after Dewey asked where Richie was during the call.
There's certain rules to surviving a stab movie. Believe me, I know. Rule number 1, never trust the love interest. They seem sweet, caring, supportive, and then welcome to Act 3 where they're trying to rip your head off.
I was with Sam in Modesto when Tara was attacked.
And let me guess, you were just in the other room, conveniently unaccounted for when she was attacked at the hospital.
Okay, do I have to take this from shitty Sam Elliott over here, or what?
We also know that it cannot be Amber on the phone, because just before she attacks Tara, she would have been heard talking from the next room, or was it Amber? Either way, we can confirm that there is a secret accomplice again, and who that is will be revealed shortly. After Ghostface reveals himself on the phone, they play a game where Tara has to name the killer from Stab 1, but she gets it wrong, only identifying Billy Loomis, something that angers Ghostface. "Oh, I'm sorry, Tara, but that's just not correct."
What? No, it is. It is, that is right.
The correct answer is Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. There are 2 killers in the original Stab. Tara runs for the door but is met by a Ghostface who stabs her in the stomach. As she stumbles backwards, she goes to arm the security system, but every time she does, it's disarmed. How would Ghostface know the code to the security system? Unless it was a close friend of the family, or possibly a love interest of Tara, meaning it is very likely that Amber knew this code. But even though Tara is distracted by the security system, Amber would not have been able to have snuck into the house with how quickly the alarm was being disarmed. Plus, with most alarm systems, if not all, you cannot set an alarm with one of the sensors open. So the Ghostface that attacks Tara is already in the house and has been. That Ghostface is likely Stu, and those who theorized that Stu was the Ghostface in the hospital can rejoice, as this theory is about to be proven. The Ghostface mask is 10 inches in length. Amber is taller than Tara, but not by much. Tara is 5 feet 1 and Stu is 6 feet 4, to put this into perspective. Here is a pic of Jen next to Matthew Lillard. And poor Jen is an inch shorter than Tara. The Ghostface that grabs Tara from behind lifts her up towards him, revealing about 8 or 9 inches of the mask standing over her. With Ghostface lifting her up onto her toes, We would get our height difference of over a foot, meaning that this is Stu. When Stu slowly walks behind Tara, who is crawling away, he dangles the knife between his fingers, letting it fall into his hand in a striking motion, something we will see again. Things become personal after Stu's nephew is killed, and we will get to that in a few. The day after his death at the Meeks' home, Mindy explains the rules of a ritual and how the characters would be all connected. Richie asks how Vince would be connected, prompting a few interesting responses. In our friend group, only Amber knows the connection and says Vince is related to Stu. Lizzie asks who Stu is, confirming that in the town of Woodsboro, someone with influence has tried to make Stu's name go away. Maybe his parents, like we discussed in part 1. Dewey answers her question by referring to Stu as
He's Billy Loomis's accomplice, a real Looney Tune.
He says this in the present tense, meaning that Stu is alive. We would have to figure that not only has Stu's plan for a sequel has taken an unexpected turn, it has angered him, because it is very likely that Richie killed Vince, because he is not familiar with the locals like Amber is, which is also why Judy's death feels different. Ghostface is filled with rage this time, and we know from how Stu dangled his knife in the attack on Tara that this is Stu as well, because he repeats this motion here. Another clue that this is Stu is before he kills her and Wes. He calls to taunt Judy by referencing the movie Psycho, something we discussed in previous parts of this series.
Can't get him on the phone, can you?
He must be busy.
How do I know you're anywhere near him?
Ever seen the movie Psycho? We also know that Stu is likely acting alone, because unlike previous kills, especially Christine's, he is not watching Wes in the bathroom while he talks to Judy on the phone. After the Hicks massacre, Sam arrives on the scene and calls Richie, telling him to get over to the hospital. Richie, at the time, is watching a YouTube video on Stab8 where we see the thumbnail with the title, "Did the real-life Stu Macher survive?" Stu's killing spree continues at the hospital, where he kills a security guard and attacks Richie and Tara. It is safe to say that up until this point, Richie had not met Stu, because his reaction to seeing him in the hall is similar to when he met Dewey for the first time. He was wide-eyed and breathing heavy, in awe of seeing a legacy character. Dewey manages to fend off a Ghostface attack and shoots him, but Stu is wearing a bulletproof vest, something he took from the trunk of Judy's car, and instead of leaving an unconscious Ghostface behind, he says,
What? You have to shoot him in the head, or they always come back.
Dewey, who gives a fuck?
I do.
No, Dewey!
Having already mentioned Stu being alive at the Meeks' home, and now having physically fought with him, it is possible that Dewey, like Randy and Sidney before him, realized that he was fighting Stu. But this time Ghostface gets the best of him. He stands over Dewey as he overpowers him, driving him down just before he guts him from the groin to the sternum, just like Casey was, and just like Stu bragged about the day after her death.
They didn't ask me if I liked to hunt.
It's because there's no way a girl could have killed him.
That is so sexist. The killer could easily be female. Basic instinct.
That was an ice pick. Not exactly the same thing. Yeah, Casey and Steve were completely hollowed out. And the fact is, it takes a man to do something like that.
It is obvious from Ghostface's hide we can link him to Stu. Later at his old home, Amber is hosting a party and we hear someone say, "Hey Freeman, cool house," which she acknowledges with a sly look. We know it was an Easter egg dropped in, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's Stu waiting to make his return, like Amber foreshadows later. As everyone converges on Stu's old house, and our killers are revealed, we begin to learn their motive and backstories. Amber reveals that she met Richie through a Stab Reddit page, just like Mrs. Loomis did with Mickey. The same page Richie shares the details for his movie, and most likely the same page that Jill and Charlie were going to upload their footage. Richie talks about making a good sequel, and Ember elaborates on the problem with the stab movies is.
The biggest problem with the stab movies is there's no Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. No bad guy to keep coming back.
That there is no bad guy to keep coming back. And if their motive was to make a sequel to the original, that meant that there had to be a bad guy that would come back. Otherwise, they were contradicting their own motives. Like with Mrs. Loomis, someone interfered and killed his followers.
I still prefer the Babadook.
With Dewey being dead, it was going to get tougher to draw Sidney out of hiding. In our next episode, we see a familiar death blow when Ghostface looks to draw Sidney out by killing Gale.
Fuck you!
If you want more Scream content, check out Nerdbox's behind the scenes, theories, Easter egg videos, and more. Until the conclusion of our series Nerdboxers, sleep tight and be careful of who you trust.